she was actually name was Betty.
Uh-huh.
And so when Dad would say one T, she would say, "That's Betty with two T's." You know, just kind of.
So got him a little
Oh
bit.
yeah.
Well, when I was talking with Warren, I learned a little bit about you. I know you're a homecoming king.
Mhm.
You graduated in '69.
Correct.
And I know you played baseball, but when I was looking through the yearbooks online, I saw that you did a lot more than just play baseball.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and start out with some general questions,
Sure.
if that's okay, and then
Sure.
we'll just go wherever
Okay.
the conversation takes us. What years did you attend the law school?
Well, let's see. That would be 69 minus 13. Basically, it started in preschool where the alumni house is.
Okay.
Used to be a preschool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was the home economics building.
Okay.
So 55, 56.
Okay.
So I was in preschool there, and then went over to work Simpkins for kindergarten, and then it was a K through 12 school.
Mm-hmm.
So went from kindergarten through senior high school.
Okay.
Now, in 1967, they started construction on Horriman, and completed that in the midsummer of 1969.
Okay.
So my class of 69 was the first graduating class out of Horriman.
Okay.
So it had its pros and cons. You know, you spend 12 years in the same building, and all of a sudden you go to a new building, you know, for the first time. It's, you know, it's the same thing as like losing, you know, your childhood home.
Yeah, sounds like it.
All the memories and that sort of thing.
And Warren said he was supposed to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, they didn't finish the construction until
Right
before. So.
Right.
So building-wise, did you like Horriman better than Simpkins, or?
Yeah, it's school. You know, it's a building. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, you've got so many memories and things in the existing building, and now you have to go to a new school. It's kind of wish you were back in the old one because everything was so familiar.
Yeah.
You know, and people are so resilient, or you know, they hate change.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and it's hard. You know, but you know, you make do. You know, you have
Yeah.
to. You have to. You don't have any choice.
You know,
that's where you're supposed to go. But
you don't have
I do remember the first day. You know, you've got your class schedule, right?
Mhm.
And I remember the first day I was supposed to be in a certain classroom, and it just didn't dawn on me. Here I am, a senior, right? It just didn't dawn on me what day it was. And I had an 8 o'clock speech class, and I don't know what building or what room I went to, but it wasn't the right one. I remember being about 10 minutes late when I finally discovered I was in the wrong place.
You discovered it before the final.
Yeah, that's right.
That's funny. How was the lab school viewed by the public?
I think actually that we were viewed as kind of the preps, the preppies, you know, if you will, kind of the rich kids, because we got to use all of the, you know, for our sporting events. You know, we played our home football games over at Hanson Field, which was pretty neat. We had access to a lot of the university buildings. When we went on class trips, you know, even, you know, wherever it was, even athletic events, you know, we took university vehicles. In other words, they had a fleet of buses that were, I guess you'd call them luxury buses. So we were kind of looked on as the rich kids, but because most of us were professors' children, so you know, the professors, you know, make more money supposedly, and you know, as compared to the school across the tracks, you know, the public school. So you know, there was a big rivalry between the two schools, but you know, in the summertime we played ball and everything with these guys, and you know, hung out with some of the girls. GA dance or something like that.
Okay.
You know, that's about the only time that you would actually interact, you know, with the kids, you know, from the public school.
Yeah.
Or unless you dated somebody that was, you know, from the other school, you know, then, you know, from Macomb High. But, and, you know, it's kind of funny, too, because it was, my children went to Macomb High, and it was just really, at the very beginning, it was just hard to root for the black and orange. You know, just that, because of the rivalry we had. Because we played them every once in a while in basketball, baseball. Never played them in football, but, you know, in track, you know, and that sort of thing. That's about the only time that we, you know, had that rivalry, but it was still kind of hard.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Do you still keep in touch with any of your friends?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
I know that you guys have a reunion every year, but do you see a lot of them throughout the year?
It's kind of funny, no.
No?
We don't, because, you know, you get kind of in your own little niche, in your own little world. For me, I site superintendent out of Spring Lake, so I go from my house on the southeast portion of town out to Spring Lake Park, and, you know, here, you know, to teach a class, and then back out to the park, and then home.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just have your own little world that you live in, and the social interaction with those that you graduated, even, you know, the people that are still around town, unless you bump into them someplace. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
You know, even though we were such a small school and we're all pretty close, you just kind of go your own way.
Yeah. Can you tell me about some of your best friends from while you were
Oh, goodness. Let's see. Probably my best friend was a guy by the name of Jerry Morgan.
Okay.
And when we were living on Charles Street, he lived on West Murray. Let's see. Almost, he was like the house that he lived in is gone now. It burned back in the mid-'90s or so. But it was the second house in west of Albert Street. So, you know, we're in the same neighborhood, and we did a lot of things together as kids. I mean, there was always something going on in the neighborhood when we were kids, and there was plenty of kids around. And within probably a 6-block area, there was, probably about 10 kids that were close to the same cohort group, you know, within 2 to 3 years of each other. So, you know, we would always get together and play pickup ball games and that sort of thing. Yeah, Jerry and I were pretty good friends. In fact, we took a trip out to Montana. My freshman year of school, I was on a football-baseball scholarship, small school in northern Montana. And I didn't get the scholarship back. And I had left some things out there, so we decided we'd take a trip out there and go grab them, and had a good time. You know, we went through Yellowstone and Glacier and all that. You know, kind of made a little trip into the west, and then came back home. Probably took us about a week, but it was a good time. It was a good time. Another guy by the name of Jeff Jones, good friend who runs Jones Sewing and Embroidery now. I know somebody is going to get an earful, whoever interviews Jeff. He's one of the founding people of these class reunions.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're going to, and Jeff can tell so many stories about what's going on, more than I could. I was like, how do you remember? You know, some of the things he remembers are just unbelievable. But, you know, I guess you remember what's important to you. But, yeah, Jeff and Jerry and another guy by the name of Rick Shryock. It seemed like wherever the Shryock family was located, we weren't too far away for some reason. And so Rick and I were good friends, and I think our junior year we had a little bit of an outing, but, you know, it happens, you know.
Yeah. Warren told me that he dated a girl from public school, and he actually ended up marrying her. Did you date anyone when you attended school here?
Yeah. Actually, I had a I dated for about, met her my junior year.
Yep. Warren did tell me that, sometimes that you would have little parties after dances. And he told me a story about, your parents leaving town one weekend, and you had college, boys went to college, they're living below you, and your parents weren't supposed to know about the party, but the boys came up because they found there was, like, cigarette ashes downstairs, and they were a little upset about that, so they found out about your party.
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that?
I don't recall that, no.
You told me that. That was a funny story.
No, we used to have friends that played in bands, and in the summertime, when the college kids weren't there, we'd have a band come down and play in the basement. Okay. At that time, I think this was like, mid-'60s, 66, 67, something like that, when Batman first came out, the sitcom, you know, and so everything was kind of a Batman thing. You know, there's a bat room and but we had, in fact, John Graham, who was I don't know if he retired, but he was working as in the art museum, running the art museum. Okay. He was there for quite a few years, but he was in a band, and so we had a party. You know, just one of those things the kids got together. You know.
There was another lady that was with Warren for the tour that they gave us of Simpkins. And
Darla Smummer.
Yes.
Yeah, she and I graduated together.
Yes.
In fact, we went to homecoming together our sophomore year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a lot of fun stories there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's the building's changed a lot, but you know the memories are still there. And it's interesting because you can go into the lower rooms where the elementary school was. The kindergarten was on the first floor. Kindergarten was in one room, and there was 2 first grades, one at the east end, one at the west end. And then the second, third, and fourth was on the second floor. Third floor had 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then I think 8th, 5th through 8th, and then the top floor was all high school.
Okay.
I'm sure, but you go into the lower levels, the first and second floors, and if you go into where the cloakrooms are, you know, where they had blackboard, and then these would open up and would become a cloak. You know, they had rows of hooks, you know, for your coats and stuff. So served a dual purpose. You know? But you know, you had your name on your little hook, right? And some of those names are still there.
Really?
Yeah.
The class that I have with Dr. Buchanan is in the kindergarten now.
Oh, okay.
So they do have the hook. So I'll look in there and see if I can see any names.
Now, if you look in that room, as I remember this, there, as you come in, and if you would look to the right, there's kind of, I don't know if it's still there, but it may be an office or something now. That's where they used to stack the cots. Really? For nap time. And, you know, the other area was a big open area, you know, for all the toys and the learning areas and this and that. But I do remember in kindergarten, I was pretty short, but I always wanted to stack up the cots. You know, they were the aluminum, you know, legged, and they were probably only about, 6 inches off the ground, but, you know, they had the aluminum legs and the canvas, and they weren't heavy at all, but, you know, there would be 2 or 3 of us or 4 of us, you know, each one having a leg, you know, but since I was short, I never got, I think once or twice I got to do that. But I always wanted to, for some reason, I always enjoyed, you know, stacking the cots. I don't know, because it made me feel important or something. I don't know. I always had to be in the spotlight again.
So I know that you were involved in a lot. I know you ran track in middle school.
Right.
And then you also played baseball, football. You were in orchestra. You helped with epilogue. And
Assembly committee.
Assembly committee, yeah.
Also on the basketball team.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my sophomore year, there's a couple of us that, because all the pictures were taken in the gymnasium on the bleachers. Well, it was like right at end of school, if I remember correctly, when this was being done, where all the various groups were having their pictures taken. And one of the things we tried to do is get into as many pictures as we could, just for laughs and giggles. I think I accomplished the goal because I looked back and on that particular year, which was 67. When I look at the 67 epilogue and you go into the back and you've got your name and it's got so many where your name, where your picture is, and there's like 8 or 10 pages, other than the sports and all that, but the other organizations. Yeah, let's get in on this. Yeah, but the orchestra, I'll tell you what. I could just kick myself because academically I did not apply myself at all, and I could just kick myself because the instructors that we had all had their masters, if not their doctorates, and you don't at that time you didn't see them.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of the things that we were exposed to at that time were leaps and bounds ahead of what public schools were being introduced to, but just not applying myself. I just can go back and just kick myself for not tapping into that knowledge base. And but the orchestra we had, wow. I mean, the professors that even the people that gave private lessons, like I played the violin and was taking lessons from Cliff Gilstrom, who was the chair of the music department and had written symphonies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I didn't practice. It just wasn't cool. You had to play your cool card all the time, And now, piano lessons, all that sort of stuff. Now, later in life, as a leisure professional, I understand the things that you're introduced to as a child have big ramifications on what you do as an adult. And some of the things that I was exposed to, I still do today. A lot of the sports and that sort of thing. Reading, love to read, and that was established early in my academic career. Really reinforced. I kind of fault my parents in a way for not getting on me, other than saying, "Did you practice?" You'd say, you'd lie to them and say, "Yeah, I practiced," when you didn't. But for really holding my feet to the fire and making me do it, because there was a lot of very talented individuals that you were exposed to, that you could glean so much information from, and so much experience and knowledge. And I just wish I would have applied myself a little bit more, like the piano lessons. And I still got my old violin, and I pull it out and play it every once in a while, but I'm sure I could bring it back, if I, all the different techniques that are needed to play that, it would take a while to get that back, but but it was a real joy. It was a real joy, and we had some very good music teachers, and we used to win sweepstakes and all that sort of thing, at the music contests, and always. I mean, it was almost expected. It was the same way, both in music and in athletics, that you didn't have a fear of failure. You had this expectation that you were going to win, going in. Losing was not even thought about. It wasn't an option. It was just a mindset that you had because of the tradition, because of the faculty involved. But you just had this mindset that, okay, we're going to win this thing. and it was really deflating when you got beat.
Yeah.
Really deflating, and it was that way. You know, we had a very successful football program. Warren probably talked about that.
He did.
But along that line, it was the same thing when you walked, especially with football, because we had such a winning tradition that heck, I can remember the football coach when I was in second or third grade would come up and he would say, "Let's see how tough you are," and he would literally put one hand on each side of your ears and pick you up by your head, and the kids would just flock to him. You know, he was like a god. And then when you got to the high school where you could actually don the red and white, you know, in football, I mean, it was something. I mean, when you got your first football letter, I mean, it was you know, you were king.
Yeah. I
mean, you were somebody because people, you know, your peer group actually looked up at you. You know, that you were a football letterman. You played football for Western High, you know, and we had 27 game win streaks. So you know, it was nothing to have something like that. And I remember talking to, although there was only like 200 kids in the high school, we we played schools like La Harpe and Carthage and Warsaw, Hamilton. You know, those were all in our conference, and they were bigger schools than us. But I remember talking to a kid from La Harpe, I can't remember who it was, but he would tell me that we would pull up in this luxury coach, get off the bus, and, you know, when I played high school football, I was 5'8", maybe 140 pounds, you know, not very big. But he said that when you guys got off that bus, he said you had these real nice uniforms, which we did. And he said, you guys look huge. And he said, right then and there, you guys got off the bus, you've already won the game. Because you've got a winning streak, you've got this long tradition of winning. And psychologically, he said, we were beat before, you know, we even kicked off.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was part of it too. But it was that mentality that just, you know, fed on itself. But it was not only was it athletically, but it parlayed into music. It parlayed into the speech and drama, you know, competitions. I mean, just throughout the whole school. And I think that's why we were kind of looked at as the preppies, because we had all these advantages that the public schools did not.
Yeah.
But when you really look at it, we did have some advantages. But I think the advantages was in the faculty. Being able to glean all the information and knowledge and all that they possessed. Yeah,
definitely. So, did you like school for the most part then?
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it. I mean, yeah, I was pretty popular. I was kind of a stud.
I was looking at your pictures.
Big man on campus.
I was looking at your pictures in the yearbook, and I thought you were. Seemed like it.
Yeah, but I don't know. For some reason, it was because I don't know. I was gifted athletically. I was fast. I don't know. Because of that, you know, because of the athletics, I think people looked upon me as being a leader, and it was just kind of thrust upon me. So I kind of assumed the role a lot of times when I didn't necessarily want it. Yeah. And I kind of wanted to step back and let somebody else take the lead. But, you know, you accept the role and you deal with it. But because of, you know, the involvement in sport, I think that's why I was pretty popular.
How did you feel about summer school?
I thought, well, going through it, I thought it sucked. you're a kid. You got everybody else gets to sleep in. We got to go to summer school.
Yeah.
But looking back, you lived through it. You got through it. It was only for half a day.
Mhm.
And what are you going to be doing anyway? You're going to be sleeping until 10, 11 anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well be doing something constructive.
Yeah.
But it's like you hit the eighth grade year, and it's like, this is my last year of summer school.
Yay! Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you became a high schooler, a freshman in high school, no more summer school.
Oh.
So it was pretty cool. But there were a lot of things that we did during summer school, a lot of projects that we did that I guess you would term it nowadays as kind of a summer camp, kind of along that line. I remember, I think it was fifth grade, we went out to Spring Lake Park. As a matter of fact, and took a camp over.
Okay.
We took a trip over to New Salem, and I can't remember if this is during regular school year or if it was in summer school, but we took pretzels and glued pretzels together and made log cabins out of pretzels.
I saw that, I think, in the yearbook.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was just like kind of one of those things that you do each year in fifth grade. As that, you learn about the log cabins and how they lived and all that sort of thing. But I can't remember if that was during summer school or not. But just some of those things. But I do remember going out to Spring Lake Park and camping. And just getting basically a bed sheet strung over a clothesline.
Yeah. Oh.
And boy, little did I know years later that I'd be running the place. Pretty weird.
What else can I ask you? Oh, I also know in fifth grade, you got to use the TV to learn.
We did what?
You used the TV to learn. Specifically arithmetic is what it showed.
Don't recall that.
No?
I mean, that's very possible. Very, very possible. I don't recall that. I remember in 1963 when President Kennedy was shot, the seventh grade room did have television hookup. I was in sixth grade, and I remember walking down the hall. The two teachers, Miss Hoeing and Miss Flynn, came in, and they were very somber-faced. And I think both of them had been crying. And had two little kids and all that in the White House. But walking down to the seventh grade room and watching what had happened, and really not understanding per se the ramifications. Just to be honest, I was pretty naive, very naive, living in a kind of an umbrella, living under an umbrella, so to speak, going into a cloistered environment, where everything was just there for you. And I feel so fortunate, even with, 4 other siblings, that things are there. But I don't know, it was, just one of those times where, but the media was always there, but, might have been on the cusp of, what's going on now. I don't know. I don't recall that. Yeah. Warren said that, huh?
No, I saw that in Epilogue.
Oh, really?
Yep. Huh. That's where it was on the same page where it talked about going on your first camping trip.
Ah, okay. Wow. Wow.
What kind of a student were you? I know you said you didn't put yourself.
I was a horrible student.
Okay.
Probably a C student.
Okay.
But I was smarter than that. I just did not study. I didn't apply myself. And again, I can kick myself in the rear for that. But to me, the academics were not important. To me, what was important was athletics. I mean, that was, Dad was a coach. I always thought that I would become a coach. Never did, but as a vocation, because everything just came so easy.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what it was, you know, but and so the academics just weren't really that important, even though in 8th grade I was declared ineligible because of grades. You'd think I'd learn.
Yeah.
No, it didn't mean nothing. It didn't mean anything.
Mhm.
I was a stud, you know. Hey. I don't know. It's just weird that and again, I just kick myself, and I fault my parents a little bit too for not holding my feet to the fire.
Yeah.
And not really explaining why it's important and trying to make me to understand. I was pretty hard-headed, but trying to get me to understand why it's important. I remember one time in, I think it was a sophomore, taking algebra and just not getting it. Just not getting it. I mean, like you take numbers of the alphabet, you know, and all of a sudden this is an equation. Come on. You know, I understand it's a concept and all that. One of my, the professor, the teacher, and I admire the way that he did this so tactfully. So tactfully. We'd had a test. I flunked it, of course. Who studies for math? You know, you don't understand it. How are you going to study it? Right?
Yeah.
But he put 3 or 4 scores up on the board. One of which was mine, of course. And he said, and he circled them, and he says, I want to see after school people that have these 4 scores. So when you were told to do something, you know, you had respect back then. So if you were told to do something by a superior, by a teacher, you did it. No questions asked. You did it. So showed up after school and went to his office, and he said, so what is it you guys don't understand? And he actually sat down, took his time after school to get us to understand where, you know, the disconnect was.
Yeah.
And, you know, after he did that, it was like, wow, that's so easy. You know, but from that, I took the fact that, you know, you need to study. You need to apply yourself a little bit in order to understand this sort of stuff. But so I was kind of a student that needed that kick in the ass, so to speak. You know.
So, were you ornery then too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I would get away with a lot of stuff. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think a lot of that parlayed to thinking so much of myself. You know, that I could do anything and get away with it. And a lot of things I did. Sometimes I got caught at, but you know, most of the time you did stuff. I mean, I can remember one time we took a family trip, and I don't know if Warren remembers this, but we would go up to Geneva, Illinois, which is where my grandmother lived, where my mother grew up. At that time, there was no Interstate 74. There was no Interstate 80. There was Interstate 55, which was basically Route 66. And we would go over to 136, over to McLean. And in McLean, there was a place called Dixie Trucker Stop. Well, it took about 2 hours to get there. And it was a nice break, and, you know, with 5 kids in the car, you know, you need a break.
Yeah, definitely.
So we would always stop at, you know, potty breaks and all that. Well, Dad always listened to jazz on the way up, or an AM, you know, of course there was only AM radios, but he would be always trying to fine-tune the radio, you know, to get that station to come in. Well, we used to like to listen to WLS, which out of Chicago, which is the rock and roll station. So I got back in the car. You never locked your car doors. You know, this is the 60s, you know, the early 60s, mid-60s. So I got back in the car first. And at that time, they had these little push buttons for the radio. Well, I set the dial to WLS, and I moved all of the push buttons. You know, you can pull them out and you push them back in. It sets the station. I moved all of the push buttons and moved them all to WLS and reset all the push buttons. So Dad gets back, and I was listening to the radio when he got back in. So he pushes the button. You know, after everybody got back in the car, you know. So he didn't think anything had happened. So we're going down the road. So he pushes the button to go to his jazz station or his talk station, whatever he was listening to, and didn't move. Pushed another one. You know, he went through and, who moved these? I don't know. It must have been Warren. You know, I'd always said somebody else to take the ball.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course.
But, you know, little pranks like that, you know, just, you know. Just making, I can remember another time, I don't know why I'm the one who's kind of stupid too, but, you know, kids and fireworks, down below, just between Sherman and East Village. If you go to the east side of Sherman, there's a walkway that goes down this big hill. Yeah. Okay, and it goes across a stone bridge. Okay, that it was called the Ravine. Okay. And all that area between where Charles and Adams meet, that was all wooded. Really? Oh, yeah. I mean, just woods all over the place. And there was a stream that meandered through. And so we got some fireworks, one of which was a M80, which is like a quarter stick of dynamite. We had about 6 of these things. And so we thought it would be just cool to take these over, you know, by that bridge, and there's sand and rock and things, just to bury these things, just so you've got the top of the M80, you know, and then you light it, run away, and then boom, you know, all this sand and stuff. Oh, that's cool, that's cool. Yeah. So then, you know, we do that about 5. You know, we got the last one, I think. Well, we lit it, ran away. We're waiting. We're waiting. Nothing's happening. We're waiting. Nothing's still happening. So someone's got to go over and check that out. Why, I don't know. But, you know. Oh, no. So, being the leader, yeah, I'll do it. And being stupid, I volunteered, so I went over and just started looking down at it. Boom! So I had all this stuff come up on my face. So, you know, I thought to myself, you know, it's like, okay, now, you know, my face is a little bit scratched up. I've got to figure out something to tell Mom when I get home. You know, because you can't tell them that can't tell them the truth, that you were playing with, you know, some dynamite. So I remember telling her that somebody had, I was riding my bike and somebody opened up a car door and I hit the car door and went tumbling over. Well, I kind of, as a parent now, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know, but I think she saw through so many of my little fallacies. I know she never pushed it or anything, so. I was kind of wondering now, you wonder back now, it's like, how much do they really know? Because back then, everybody knew everything. Everybody knew everybody's kids, and, you know, they were calling each other and letting each other know what was going on. So I think they had a better idea of what we were up to than we knew they did.
During the tour, Warren showed us the principal's office, but you did not want to be here. Did you ever end up there, though?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did.
Yes?
Yes, I did. And there's a story behind that.
All right.
Principal is Waldo Horban, whom Horban Hall was named after. And it's kind of funny, you know, that you know so many people who have since deceased, but you were on a very first name basis with them as Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. There's buildings named after them. But no, you don't want to go into Mr. Horban's office. I mean, he was a very kind-hearted man, very kind-hearted man. We had taken a junior high basketball trip over to Carthage. And we got beat. both teams, and we were very upset.
Mhm.
So some kids had taken some glass Coke bottles and threw them down stairs, and they broke. That wasn't me. Somehow I had come across a book of matches, and I was outside lighting the match, trying to get a tree to start fire with with a match, from a book of matches. Like, there's just the whole appearance, and that sort of thing. There's no way in God's green earth that tree was going to get lit. So I had to report to Mr. Orban's office. Got kicked off the team for a bit, and got suspended. Had to perform some community service, school service basically. Volunteerism, that sort of thing. So I ended up, if memory serves me correctly, I ended up sweeping the gym floor during halftime games, that sort of thing. Which sounds kind of not good. Plus, I had to bring my grades up. So, but even though I was sweeping the floor, I was going to be at the game anyway. And to be part of something like that, it was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. Because that was all part of the lab school too. Is that because when you're a little kid and you see all these high school kids, you know who they are. You go to the basketball games, you go to the football games. They are your heroes.
Yeah.
You don't, you see them in the lunchroom. You see them in the hallways. You don't interact with them per se, but those kids are your heroes. And that could be like 6 years ahead of you, but they're your heroes. Those are the people that you look up to. You want to be like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, part of that. That's like cohesiveness of the school that makes you want to be like these other people. And so it's kind of interesting that when you do these sorts of things, you just want to be part of the school, part of, even though you're not able to, you're in grammar school, but if you can do anything to be close to the high school, be part of that, environment, that's to die for.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's interesting because I officiate high school basketball. And went over to Concord, Triopia. And this is the only place that it's ever happened that, as an official, while the team's during their timeout and you're still standing out on the court and you're thirsty and you're sweating, well, nobody gives you a towel. Nobody gives you a bottle of water. Nothing. Well, at Triopia, they had this thing where they had 3 kids, and they were grade schoolers. They would come out, and there was one assigned to each of the officials, and they would give you a bottle of water, and they'd give you a towel at every timeout. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is great. Because and I was thinking that this is a great motivator for these kids because it's a small community.
Yeah.
And I know these kids want to be part of it. So you use it as a motivator for grades, for scholarship, for citizenship. You can take a troublemaker and turn them around by doing this sort of thing.
Yeah.
I even mentioned it to the athletic director at the high school that fell on deaf ears. But being part of that, in any way that you can. I'm on the floor. I'm sweeping the floor, but I'm on the floor that my heroes are playing on. It was just cool.
So then when you got to be one of those heroes, then if that was something too.
But you don't look at it that way when you're in that position, because it's just, you're in high school.
Yeah.
You don't think of the little kids. And looking back, I was dope slapped myself for not, giving back to the little kids, going down there and interacting with them. I don't know. It's just
Can you tell me your favorite, or either your favorite or your worst teachers that you had?
Probably my favorite teacher is probably Miss Buckley, who was English teacher.
Okay. Warren talked about her.
She was strict.
Mhm.
She was so strict that, when you were in, I think it was 8th grade, you could either have Miss Stifler, Mrs. Stifler, or Miss Buckley. And everybody said, you don't want to get Buckley. You do not want to get Buckley. But, looking back on it, she was a lot of fun. Yeah, she was strict, but I saw the other side of her. When I was a senior, we had a senior skip day. That's, they all knew, teachers all knew we were leaving. But we had a senior skip day, and we had forgotten something, and I was going back to my house or going someplace to pick something up, and I got a speeding ticket at the bottom of Murray Street, right at the entrance to the Hanson Field. And Miss Buckley found out about it, so she said, "Why don't you come over to my house and wash my car?" And I thought, well, okay, not thinking that she would, just doing it to be nice, Well, she gave me $20.
Oh, really?
Well, I paid for the speeding ticket.
Oh.
And, it's like, wow. But, once you got into the class and she started teaching and this and that, she was a lot of fun. She was very intelligent. We were using, as seniors, we were using college texts for literature and studying a lot of things that you usually don't study. But she would push you because she knew that you could do it.
Yeah.
She'd hold your feet to the fire. Another example of the other side of her was I just bought my first car for $112.50. It was a 1957 Vauxhall Victor, which is a German type car. Well, the muffler had gone out of it, and I had industrial arts prior to English. And I'd taken the muffler. It was a straight pipe, basically. Taken that off, and I had ordered one from J.C. Whitney, automotive catalog, and it had come in. And I was in the process of installing it. Well, I didn't get it all done. And Mr. Houck, the industrial arts teacher, said, "You can't leave this car in here." So I had to go to Miss Buckley and say, here I am covered in, grease and grime and all this sort of stuff and just filthy. And I asked her, I said, "My car's an IA and Mr. Houck wants me to get it out." I said, "Can I, be excused?" She said, "Yeah, go ahead." Yeah. So she was really a lot of fun. And it's funny because you go back, when I would go back to the high school, and she was still there. She was one of the first persons I looked for, give her a big hug and all that. And, and she said something one time that I still remember to this day, and that is, as a student, that when you are asked a question, she said, "I don't care what class it is, when you are asked a question, don't put your head down. Look me straight in the eye and dare me to call on you. Dare me." She says, "I know when you don't know the answer because you always put your head down." And as an instructor in my classes here, I can ask a question and I see the exact same thing. And it must be some type of a idiosyncrasy that we do as students.
Yeah.
But, it's like, "Don't call on me, please." You put your head down and, you try to hide. And that's, I guess, a way of trying to hide. You put your head down.
Yeah.
But she said, "Dare me to call on you." And I would do that. And got away with most of the time because, like I said, I never studied. But, yeah, she very rarely would call on me. She did on occasion. And, of course, I would go, "I'm clueless."
Warren also told me about on the way home from school sometimes you would walk by Mr. Hanson's office.
Oh, yes.
And
oh, yeah.
If you wanted something out of the
oh,
vending
yeah.
machine, you
yeah.
would shake it
yeah.
and pretend that you lost your money.
Yeah.
So I thought that was hilarious.
Oh, yeah. In fact,
That was really funny.
Oh, yeah. He was that man, being a colonel in the United States Marine Corps, he'd have this gruff interior. He was like a little banty rooster.
Mm-hmm.
He was about 5'6", not real tall, but he had this gruff exterior. And he'd come out, "What are you boys doing?"
Mm-hmm.
He knew who we were because Dad was in the office someplace. He had his office over there in Morgan Gym. But I remember he used to come every homecoming and give us a talk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He'd go up on the stage there, and of course, he always wore bow ties.
Really?
Yeah, always wore bow ties. And this one homecoming assembly we had. This is the assembly. It's when we announced the king and queen for homecoming and this and that, and the royalty and all that. He reaches. He's giving us, real good speech. Get you fired up and all that.
Mm-hmm.
He was real good at that. But he reaches down in his pocket, and as he's talking, he must have had something wired up. But as he's talking, he presses the button. His bow tie started spinning. It just showed another side. But he had where the Jackson Street Pub now sits.
Okay.
He originally built that building,
mm-hmm.
and it was called the Varsity Cafe.
Okay.
And he owned it. And he went out. This shows how soft he was, and what a soft side he had for students. But if somebody came up and was really hungry and didn't have enough money to pay, they could eat, maybe wash dishes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just him. But he'd always come across as this gruff character and stuff. But he was just had a heart of a teddy bear.
Yeah.
He was really a very, very nice man. Very nice man. Couldn't drive worth a hoot. There's a lot of stories about his driving exploits. I was not part of it, of course, but
mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people in the community that remember him and his driving exploits. And he was
boy.
not a good driver.
Oh, boy.
But he was a dandy. Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
He used to do that a lot. You couldn't, pretty soon he'd catch on, so we had to be careful about doing it. But a lot of times we get done, we go over there swimming after school.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy by the name of Fred Caspel at the time was a student. And it was kind of funny because I ran into him. He was a professor. He became a doctor of geology. Did a lot of work on reclaiming, the land
mm-hmm.
after the strip mines.
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot of work with that, and actually developed a process which the land could be reclaimed after the strip mining was done. But anyway, when he was a undergraduate, he was a lifeguard, mm-hmm. and we used to go swimming after school in the pool over at Morgan Gym. And they had enticed me to do a 1.5 off the high dive.
Oh.
And gosh, I must have been 6th grade, 5th grade, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't quite make it. Made 1 and 3/4, and just landed flat, belly flopped, and was not in good shape.
No.
Well, he was studying for a test.
Mm-hmm.
He had all these papers on him and this and that, and he actually had to come in and get me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I see him, to this day, every time I see him, he always reminds me of that. But yeah, doing things like that and the interaction with Ray Hanson is just. I remember in Morgan Gym, there was a picture at the entrance to the gymnasium. There was a picture of Newt Rockman,
mm-hmm.
The famous Notre Dame coach,
mm-hmm.
life size, just a huge picture. And I think in Western Hall, if you go down to Western Hall, they've got some memorabilia from Ray Hanson.
Mm-hmm.
He's standing by that picture of Newt Rockman, and it was really neat. I remember always as a kid going in there, and just going to the basketball games with Dad and all that sort of thing, and looking up and seeing that, and then reading about Newt Rockne, the book of, there was a story in the library about Newt Rockne, which I read, about his, basically a biography, and really neat. And then to see that picture and know that the guy that I know actually recommended Ray Hansen for the job, it's just, those 6 degrees of separation, that you just feel, that much closer. It's like, wow. Yeah. That's really cool. There was also down in the men's bathroom, or the men's locker room, I should say, there was a scale. That scale is downstairs outside the rental area in the Spencer Recreation Area. Okay. And it's one of the few things that survived the fire. Yeah. But that, and I went to the rec center, when I was an undergrad, and I saw that scale and went, wow. And it just immediately just snapped into all these memories. Yeah. Where that scale, I knew exactly where that scale came from. And I can remember all the, being down in that locker room, going swimming, changing clothes, and yada, yada, yada. But it was just like, wow, it survived. Yeah. But it just brought back, every time I see it, it just brings back all those memories. And it's just strange how things like that do it. Yeah. When I was also looking through epilogues, I know you were both in Explorer Scouts. I was just in the picture. Oh, one of those. Okay. That was one of the days where I, got in the picture. I wasn't part of the group. I got in the picture though. You were pretty honored. One of my order time. But yeah, the Explorer Scouts were pretty cool. They did, their big thing was going on I think it was a Current River, canoeing trip on the Current River. I never did it. What was Assembly Committee? Assembly Committee was, there was a member from each class, and you were supposed to get somebody. Your task was to bring somebody into the school to give a speech about whatever. And I was appointed by the teachers. It was appointed by the teachers. So I guess it was kind of a high honor of sorts. Why they picked me, I don't know. But yeah, you had, and the assemblies were for grades 7 through 12. And I remember one of my senior year, I was able to get Stan Wright, who had just come to, he's a black man that came to Western to go over after Dad had retired. But this man was the coach of the sprinters at the '68 Olympics. So this man had some clout. Yeah. So I asked him to come and talk to the, high school, junior high and high school, about his experiences at the Olympics. And he readily agreed, and I remember going over to his office and getting him to do that. On a side note on that is, again, this is the mid-'60s. And he had a hard time. He was going to buy a house on, I think it was Penny Lane or somewhere out, that addition is right behind, just to the west of Thompson. Okay. And the other one, Higgins. That subdivision back there just to the west. He was going to buy a house out in there. And he met a lot of resistance because of his color. Really? Yeah. And this is like 68, 67, 68 in that vicinity. So it was kind of an eye-opener. Yeah. Going through all that social unrest, you see it on the television. But it was like, yes, there were blacks in town, and the blacks lived on the East End. That was their place. But it's just the way it was. I mean, even to this day, that's where the poor section, you talk about the East End. The East End was the poor section where the blacks and the white trash and all, the poor people lived. That's just the way it was.
Mhm.
Just one of those things. I mean, you interacted with them. I thought nothing about their color.
Mhm.
Playing against them, thought nothing of it. But when it came time to go home, just that, they went to the East End. That's where they were.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a mindset in the community that that's where they had to stay. So when here you've got a black man with all this prestige that comes in and dares to buy a house in this white middle-class area, upper middle-class area, because it was all teachers and that sort of thing, professors, and dares to buy a house, there was some resentment and there was some hesitation. I mean, it was, and I didn't really pay attention to it, nor to what was going on in the South. It was just one of those things. I guess again, it's that cocoon that you're in.
Yeah.
And I look back at it now, and it's like, wow. You lived through that. But it was like it just didn't affect me in the way that socially. The way that it should socially.
Mhm.
Even though we had teachers that were bringing this to our attention, that were encouraging us to march against the Vietnam War, all that sort of thing, but it's just like, nah, it's like I'm in my little cocoon, I don't want to break out, I'm safe and secure in my little cocoon.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen to me. And, again, it's that naivety, however you say that, that you have, about the outside world. You know it exists, but it's like, it's hard to explain. When you're in that little cocoon, that these things are, what's happening, but it's not affecting you.
Yeah.
It's not affecting you because you're in that cocoon, but it should be affecting you as a human being. And that's part of that being naive.
Did back to what you said about the Vietnam March and stuff, did you see a lot of that around campus at all?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of college students, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, simply because a lot of the college students were drafted.
Yeah, I know Warren said he was drafted.
Right.
And he chose to join the Air Force.
Right. And I had talked to an Air Force guy and actually wanted to get into the medical field at this time. This was like 1970. And I had scheduled to take a test. And, of course, on these tests, you have to score a certain aptitude in order to get into the medical field. Well, I'd gone out the previous night and just got blasted.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just horrible. I was just hungover. Had a case of the runs, just, not in good shape to be taking a test, I found out that, I didn't make it. So I said, And at this time, I was classified as 1A. And you had, your 1A is where you were eligible for the draft. And the draft, did he explain the draft?
A little bit.
Okay, well, based upon how many troops were needed. They would draft so many men, so many hundreds of thousands of men, and the way they did this, and they had a national lottery, and that's the way it was. They would put everybody, all the dates of the year into this big tumbler, and they had this televised, and they'd roll it, and okay, first date, and they'd read a date. If you were 1A, and that was your birth date. Hello, Uncle Sam. Greetings from Uncle Sam, if you were 1A. Fortunately, they would take up to a certain amount. They would take up like 154 dates, because that would correlate into so many men. And of those 154 dates that they pulled, they knew that some were going to be 2S, which is a student deferment. So as long as you were going to school, to a college, you got that deferment. You couldn't be drafted. You were good. So they knew there were going to be some of those. But the ones who were 1A, so at that time I was 1A. And they went up to 154 or something like that. That's why that number sticks in my mind. And fortunately, I was like, my birthday was like 250 or something like that, so it was way after that, so I missed that one. So it was good. And then previous, as the war was starting on its downward scale, and because of the political pressure and the pressure from the citizens, they started taking less and less troops. And the war became more and more popular. They started taking less and less troops. So I remained 1A and never got drafted. So, but the first year that the draft back in 1960, I think it was the fall of '69. I was a 17-year-old freshman in college out in Montana. And I can remember sitting in this guy's basement, and we were watching the TV, and they pulled out the numbers. I was kind of disillusioned at that time. Here I was, a big stud in sports and all that sort of thing. Didn't get the scholarship back. That's because the football team sucked, in essence. I mean, we were terrible. I mean, going from a winning program to one that won one game, we were horrible. The coach played favorites. So there was a lot of things that just were wrong in my mind. And I just really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I stayed out a semester when I came back, trying to find myself. Got a job at a local factory. I was working at the factory, and then I went back to school. And again, academics being the low point that it always seemed to be with me, and not knowing that when you transfer, that your first semester or your first quarter on campus, that you establish your overall grade point. We didn't have advisors then. You went by what was in the handbook, and so that I was working full-time in the factory, second shift, going to school full-time, taking 15, 14 hours, something like that. Academics still were not very high on my list, and I did not even pull 1 point.
Really?
Yeah. I think even with all the credits that transferred in from that freshman year, I think I had 2 Fs, a D, and an A, or 3 Fs, a D, and an A, something like that. But they're all 100 level classes, intro to this and intro to that carry a lot of weight credit-wise. These are 4 credit-hour courses, 3, 4 credit-hour courses that you flunk. Yikes. So needless to say, I dug myself a deep academic hole that took me years to get out of. Years. I would go, I was put on academic probation. So I could still register, still go to class. But I had to pull a grade point average, pull my grades up. Didn't do it. I came close, didn't do it. So I was put on academic suspension, which meant that I could only attend school in the summer. And, usually, I don't know if you've been in summer school, but hardly anything is offered. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, if you get some general curriculum stuff out of the way. So I'd get like 3 A's and a B instead of pulling a 4-point. And I needed to pull a 4-point. So slowly my grade point average would come up. So then I went back on academic suspension, which allowed me to get, or probation, where I could get back into regular school in the fall. And I just miss it. Just by 1 grade or something. Just barely miss it. But each time I was pulling my grade point up. I look at my transcript now, and it's like, it's embarrassing. Yeah. Because when I have to apply for a job or something, send a transcript, it's like, do I really have to? But when I got after I came back, I came back at the age of 44 to finish up my undergrad. I was still under academic probation when I entered. And I had a lot writing because I I had just lost my job in New England
Mhm.
and had 2 girls and a wife, and come back and went to school, and I pulled grades. I got it, but that first semester was tough because we moved halfway through and living in a parents' house. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It was just horrible, but I was able to pull grades, and then that first semester I did not make the dean's list. But every semester after that, until I graduated, I made the dean's list.
Mhm.
So that was good.
Yeah.
That was good. I
Definitely.
finally saw the light. How many years did it take?
Yeah. A couple questions that I forgot to ask you before that I'll ask now were, I know that you were a sophomore officer.
Okay.
And you were a junior prom attendant.
Yeah.
So what did both of those?
Oh, I think when I was a sophomore, I was a prom attendant.
Okay.
You have to excuse me for a few moments.
Okay.
There's a stage left here.
Okay.
I'll get back.
We were.
Yeah, the
junior and senior.
Yeah, I can't remember class officers. I think I was vice president, but you know,
Mhm.
hey, as a class officer, as a vice president, what do you do? Nothing. I think it was just more of a, popularity contest than anything else.
Mhm.
I always wanted to be president, but never was. Anyway, sophomore year, as a prom attendant, it was called, basically, we were called as punch boys.
Mhm.
So you could bring a date. And the highlight of that whole experience was the fact that we had REO Speedwagon playing over here, and we had our prom over at the time it was the Heritage Room.
Mhm.
Grand Ballroom was not there. That whole eastern portion of the Union was not in existence. So we had REO Speedwagon play for that prom, and that was really cool.
Yeah, I bet.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I mean, as a sophomore, it's like, hey, I am somebody.
Mhm. Definitely.
I thought I was Mr. Somebody then, but actually I got a tambourine from the lead singer.
Really?
Yeah, he broke the skin off it.
Mhm.
And said, could I have that?
Mhm.
I said, yeah, take it. I think he broke it. Come to think of it, the wood broke in half. But hey, this is before REO was really popular.
Uh-huh.
It was just right, they were kind of in their garage band days, so
Yeah.
to speak. The very, very early days. I don't think they might have released an album at that time. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
But it might have been one of their very, very first ones. But yeah, that was what I remember. That was pretty cool. But as far as duties, yeah, you just poured punch into a cup and said, "Here, drink this." But it was fun.
I know the lab school closed in '73, so
Right.
you were obviously out of school by then. But I know your younger brother and sister.
Right.
And was there? You only have 2 younger siblings.
3.
3. Okay.
Yeah, 3.
Okay.
There's 5 of us.
So they had been in the lab school.
Yes.
And Warren said that he talked to your sister, who's only a year younger than you.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, no, obviously not.
No. Tom, there were 3 boys and then 2 girls.
Okay.
Tom, the next youngest brother, graduated 3 years behind me. He was a freshman when I was a senior.
Okay.
So his, I believe, was the last graduating class out of Orban when they closed it.
Okay. And then
Sarah, who was a year behind him,
okay, that's how.
was or Sally was actually the first class of seniors that combined Western High and Macomb High.
Mhm.
So that was kind of a tough one for her.
Mhm.
And Sue Ann, the youngest, was probably oblivious to any of this. She was way back there. She was kind of one of those How'd that happen? So, it really didn't affect her because she went up through the Macomb system.
Okay.
She wasn't part of the lab school experience.
Okay. And why did the lab school close? Do you know, was it because of lack of funding, or?
I think that had a lot to do with it. They decided that they closed quite a few, and there was a lot of political pressure, to make ends meet. Because I know the enrollment was always there, and the university wanted it for the education department, that sort of thing, and it was a great environment for education majors to come in and student teach. I mean, you're right there on campus. I know I'm getting off the subject, but I really, to me, I was gone by then and really didn't care. I was upset that it had to close, but the whole lab school idea was educationally a great idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if that didn't go, 1965, Western Hall was built. Dad was track and cross country coach. Well, now he's got an indoor track. He'd never had that before. So he was just ecstatic. So, he's got 8 lanes. It was like a 220-yard indoor track. And before, his indoor track team had to work out at the Armory or in the tunnel underneath Sherman and Simpkins. That's where they worked out, or even outdoors. But I was a sprinter. Warren was a hurdler, and Brother Tom was a hurdler. And Tom, actually, Warren set a record at a district track meet. Did he tell you about that? Warren set a record in an outdoor track meet that was held, I believe, in Galesburg. And he set a record because that was the first year that it was run. It was 180-yard lows around the curve. Well, 6 years later, little brother Tom comes by when he's a senior, runs the same race, 180 lows around the curve, beats his older brother's record by 1/10 of a second.
Oh, my gosh.
And then they quit running it. So Tom, it stayed in the Abbot name all that time. So anyway, 1965, Western Hallsville. I was a sprinter. So I think this is my, freshman year. So Dad, we're down at Western Hall, Dad and Warren and I think, and Warren, just checking things out, and Dad looks at me and says, "Hey," he says, "start over on the south side there of the hall there, and run into the smoke area, which was the east end, around the curves, and then come over here. Just run half a lap." He says, "I'll time you." I'm, "Oh, okay, Dad." He says, "Go," and off I go. So I'm running in, and I go around the curve, and then he timed me. Now, in the east end of Western Hall, they have these huge I-beams, steel I-beams. They're probably 2 feet from the inside lane, and there's 2 of them, one on the south side, one on the north side. Now, these are the only beams that are on the entire track, if you will, and there's none on the west end, but there's 2 in the east end. So I go running in there and around the curve. Of course, it's a tight curve. You lean into it, and you're trying to go fast and all this. So I said, I got done, and I said, "What was my time?" And he says, "Oh, such and such." And he said, "By the way," he says, "how close did you come to those I-beams?" I said, "Geez, Dad, I don't know. It was close." I said, "Maybe a couple inches." He says, "That's what I thought. We should probably pad those." So every meet from then on there, every time they had a meet or a practice, those things were padded. So he got some pads. Then there was another time where I always wanted a pole vault. I don't know why. Just like the idea of pole vaulting.
Mhm.
But there was a certain concept of, because this is right when fiberglass vaulting poles came out.
Mhm.
And with the, prior to that, they were using a very thick bamboo or steel. And what you had to do with those is slide your hands up and just kind of hold on and swing your body up, and your momentum would carry you up and over. And then you would land into, you know, at that time it was just sawdust.
Oh.
Yeah, or sand.
Oh.
You know, from that, yeah. Not, then they came out with this, they had foam rubber in nets, and that was your landing pit. So that was a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then they came out, I remember a track team coming in that brought their own landing pit, which was called Cloud 9. And it was a air-inflated landing pit. So when you landed, you know, you were basically landing on this inflated thing, and then your weight, because of the weight that when you came down, it would just push all the air out. And then you get off, and the thing would...
I better get going to class.